Thank you. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is just quite amazing that we're all here and that it's working. So Leslie and I started the Motherhood Project about 3.5 years ago when Leslie had her 2-year-old son and I had 6-month-old twins, and we were both sort of wondering how we'd get back in our studio and start working again. And so we started talking to our former faculty members and other women we saw who were making art and being moms and kind of doing the have-it-all thing, and we were wondering how logistically you do that. So when we also were interested in working with the community and kind of reaching out and doing a collaborative project, so the Motherhood began. And it's been really great because it's been through a network where we've asked one person, do you know anybody who would be interested in this project? And then they would share a name, so it's sort of like telephone, and it's been able to reach out across the world, which is amazing, and all the women that we've asked have said yes, we'd love to be a part of it. So we have about 100 artists so far in 10 different countries, and we have 4 countries represented here today, which is really exciting, and then a bunch of artists around the United States. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope to hear from you all soon. And here's Leslie to tell us about some other stuff.
Okay, can you guess that this is a relaxed evening? Okay, can we just say that right now? We're really excited. One of the things that we wanted to do while we were here is that Natalie and I get to come as representatives from our project, but not every woman that's a part of the project can be here and experience what we are. So we decided that this idea of a symposium, instead of just having it for the local community, what if we opened it up for anyone that wanted to join in via what's called a Blue Jeans network, which is what you're seeing here. It's just like a Skype, essentially, which has been amazing. So we sent out word to the artists. They said if they had it open in their schedule, they'd love to join in. And it makes it feel like we are really looking at kind of a global perspective on the topic that we're going to cover. Just to give you a little idea of what we're going to do tonight, we have 6 panelists in total. I'm going to do a quick intro with who everyone is and where they're from. We're going to just hear from the panelists first, but just like Claire said, we're going to have we were hoping to have a vocal audience. So at the end of our discussion with the panelists, we do want to have plenty of time for question and answer for you all. So anything really, hits you, jot it down so you don't forget. We'd love to have open discussion about the things that we cover and to hear your own experiences of that. So I want to get to introducing the panelists that we have. And before I forget, I do want to do a couple of thank yous. Yeah. I want to thank Claire from the Hannah Maclure Centre for really kind of bringing the project in and having the confidence with 2 women approaching her from Texas with Pernilla Spence's help.
Just intimidated.
And just the community it took to bring that here. So, and Pernilla for really introducing us to Claire. Raz Ola has been wonderful in trying to figure out how to set up everything for this. So I think it's important instead of the end to say thank yous at the beginning. And then I want to thank UNT, the University of North Texas, where I work, for letting us facilitate this through the Blue Jeans Network. So they're really wonderful there and have worked with us to make sure this works right. And you're not hearing feedback right now. So they're amazing. But to kind of get to the panelists, we have 2 panelists here that a lot of you might know. Probably don't really have to introduce them. Pernilla Spence, who is a performance-based artist and also teaches at DJ CAD. Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. And I actually met Pernilla about a year ago here, and that was really the conversation that started the project here. And then we have Dr. Simone O'Callaghan, who's an interdisciplinary artist here at Abertay. And then we have 4 panelists that are in various parts of the screen. So when I say your name, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, hopefully, maybe not all of them are quite up. You'll see them at some point soon. We have Molly DeCallo from Israel, and she's a multidisciplinary artist living and working in Tel Aviv. Also from Israel, we have Shira Richter, who's a feminist artist and scholar and activist, who's worked with us a lot on the Motherload project. Marina Sterenberg from Dallas, Texas, is an interdisciplinary artist as well. She's not on the screen. Oh, there she is. Oh, she's covered by us. Okay. This isn't perfect, okay, guys? Just go with us on this. And then Rachel Powers, who's an Australian-based freelance writer, and she wrote an amazing book that's called The Divided Heart, and Art and Motherhood, and then she has a new book called Creativity and Motherhood, The Divided Heart. So we're really excited that we have 4 countries that are represented here at this one conference in this one room. So I'm going to hand it back over to Claire so we can get started. You got it? Perfect.
I should say Rachel is in there, but you can only see 9 people at a time, so when she speaks, her image will come to the fore and you'll be able to see her lovely face. I think we're going to just do like a wee swivel round of the camera so that everyone online can see who we have in the audience tonight. Are you able to do that, Raz? So as you see the camera coming round, maybe give everyone a wee wave. Oh, he's got a wee gadget that does it rather than having it lift it up. No, he's going to lift it up. Yeah. Yeah. So look, you can see you at the top. Woo! Hello. Excellent. Okay. There. Oops. The beginnings of a community already. How lovely is that? So I think we just wanted to start off about hearing what people make. Their studio practice. What they make, and maybe perhaps also how that changed upon having children and what the impact of that was. So maybe if we start off back in this room and point that towards... No!
Is this when I get to show some of my images?
Yep.
Okay. So as Natalie said, I do performance work. I also work with video and installation as well. Do you want to just get some images up? I just thought we were just asked to show a couple of images. I just wanted to show 3. Could you go to the very bottom one? Okay, so pre-kids.
I'm kind of good.
Yeah. Pre-children. I guess my work.
Oh, but
I did travel a lot more to make my work and did a lot more travelling exhibiting. I quite often took on quite ambitious projects in terms of risk, I suppose, risk-taking projects that I guess once children came along I may have thought twice about, which I certainly didn't when I didn't have any dependents. So this is a piece called I Look Up, I Look Down, and I worked with skydivers on this piece, although I did do a number of jumps myself. I was supposed to be in the film, but that's another very long story about dealing with fear and when to step back. But that I could spend an hour talking about this project. The very top image, if you could just jump up to the top image, is a project that I was able to do through receiving one of the Scottish Arts Council Creative Scotland Awards. It's called Here Now, There Now, and it's probably one of my biggest projects to date. It took place in the landscape alongside railway lines, from Aberdeen through Dundee to Edinburgh and across to Glasgow. It took 2 years to plan and was a logistical nightmare. And I think I must have, during the 3 days of the actual event, or that week, I think I probably was averaging on 2 hours sleep a night. Brilliant. My first child was 2 years old at that time, but I started developing it when she was born. So what I found quite interesting was that kind of finally trying to, I suppose I had to kind of accept that maybe I can always work on that scale once my first child arrived, and it was that realisation of how to really think about what was important, and an awareness of your children grow up really fast. I didn't want to be the type of artist that sent their children away to be looked after by somebody else all the time. I wanted to kind of spend that time with them. And my youngest is 6 now, my oldest is 10, and that has gone fast. So I was really aware of that. So after this project, I did scale things down a lot and also worked a lot more locally. So if you just go to the middle image, so the middle image is a piece called Stray Bird, and that was for the Blue Skies Festival, which took place in Dundee. I think there was 1 or 2 Blue Skies festivals in Dundee. And that, again, just working more locally. Kirsty here helped me out on this piece, and other local artists, but I have spent quite a few years working a lot more locally, still making work, but not travelling quite as much. But now, as the children are getting older, then that's becoming more possible again. But I did step back a little bit in terms of travelling, but did not stop making work. Anyway, I hope.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Nella. Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating insight. I think just that ambition still to keep making, but that realization that something might have to change. And I think we'll probably hear that as a reoccurring theme. So maybe what I'll do now is I'll cross over and ask the same question to Marina. So if I can ask Marina just a little bit about what your studio practice is, and perhaps the impact of family, what changed within your practice beyond that. And if you unmute your mic, Marina, when you speak.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me well because I'm using headphones?
Yeah.
Okay. I was actually a single mom for the first years of my daughter's life, and so it was one of those experiences where, you know, I can do it all myself and I don't need any help, which wasn't very helpful to my artwork, even though I did put together a solo exhibition when she was 2, but the work didn't really progress in those 2 years. And I think one of the main things that I learned, maybe since becoming a mother, is that the work has to be more relevant to life. Like, I have become much less of that desolate artist in the studio, you know, making work outside of what's happening in real world, and becoming a mother has really put me into the kind of mundane day-to-day what people deal with, you know, on a kind of daily basis, and the work not being relevant to that became meaningless, and so kind of caused me to think about subject matter and things that are more directly connected to the everyday life. And I can share, I don't know if this is showing or not showing, but let's see. Here we go. Does that show up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Hello?
Hello? Yes. Oh, yes, we can see it.
We can see it.
Guys? Are you still there? Can you see anything?
Yes.
Yes.
It's hard to tell what's working, what's not. I have many things on my screen. So definitely one of my biggest, I guess, resources right now is connections with other mothers, and kind of creating, the only way I am able to really go to the studio and make work is because, you know, friends that are mothers, you know, I have a friend who will kind of, we share responsibilities, right? Like, so she will pick up my daughter, take her to class while I'm at my studio working, then I will pick up them and take them back and so forth. You know, kind of very simple day-to-day support that I think women give each other in a community. And that has helped tremendously. And that kind of jump-started this project, which is the Hair Bonds project, which will be part of the exhibition as well. In which the hair of different women is braided together to kind of, through this language of hair, to kind of suggest that power that we all have, that rootedness that we have in each other, you know, that kind of connectedness to other women. You know, you guys asked, I also took a shot. This is kind of like the space in which I'm very fortunate to work in, although it's a temporary space which might actually not be there, you know, maybe even in a few months, because I'm working inside a you know, rundown mall that is going to be demolished. You know, the plans are for it to be demolished. But having this space that is separate from home has been a huge resource, right, for work. But I think it's also important to talk about that, like art practice is not only just making the work, but it's also, researching and, putting out applications. There's a tremendous amount of work that happens outside of the studio, and that certainly happens, at night. It's always a kind of after. Maybe I can switch this back to, how do I switch this back? Does that stop playing? That always happens when my child is asleep, so a lot of, and I think it's, the biggest challenge is a kind of emotional challenge. It's, how can you, be a successful artist, when you're working these crazy hours, and at the same time be a good mother when you're not having enough sleep, so those kinds of are the main challenges that came about in my practice. I think that's all. I just wanted to touch upon those things. I think that are important maybe to bring up in this conversation, more so than to talk about my work, because hopefully these are some of the things that we can relate to with each other.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those things resonate with many of the people in this room, and indeed online.
Wait a second.
Oh, am I muted?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah. No, I'm just saying that I'm sure many of those things resonate with a lot of people in the room and online as well. So thank you so much for sharing your work and sharing your experience. We'll come back to you. So perhaps actually now it'd be nice to hear from Rachel as an author, as a writer. If we can ask you about your practice and your experience, it'd be nice to hear. Rachel's in Australia. I don't know, what time is it there, Rachel?
About 5 a.m.
Sorry.
It's all right, it's very quiet here. So, I suppose for me, the idea of studio practice sounds actually quite lovely. I really just work where it's largely around the kitchen table. I have a full-time day job and write on top of that. So I just write creatively when I can. But I suppose in terms of the background of that, I studied journalism straight out of high school, and I worked as a journalist for a number of years. And then in my early 20s, I felt that I was really missing my creative life and went back to art school. I had to study at art school part-time. And by the time I had finished, or by the time I was in my final year of art school, I was pregnant with my first child. So that was an interesting experience itself, because I was doing creative writing and fine arts combined. And because there were so many fumes everywhere in the art school, I had to work in the aerated stairwell with a mask on by myself for the months leading up to having my baby. So the point at which I actually was really starting to try and do a creative life alongside my working life, I had a child. And so the thing that almost ironically, I suppose that launched me into this other space of actually writing about that experience and seeking out other mothers who might be similarly feeling like they were drowning and couldn't work out how they were ever going to get any kind of creative work done again. So that's what I've ended up doing in a funny kind of way around the past decade now, with 2 editions of the book and everything that's come from Divided Art. And I really related to Marina mentioning the grant writing and so on. I've just spent the past week writing a grant application, and that's pretty much taken up my entire writing time, and it happens a lot where I find the same things are competing for that tiny amount of space that you have around working children. Whether it's exercise, trying to relax a bit, or spending with your partner. So I still struggle a lot with that combination of being in the kind of headspace that being writing requires, which is a very self-absorbed, I suppose, a deep space, and still present by children. Because children want you to be there, they want you to be focused on them, they don't want your head to actually be somewhere else. And then, of course, there's all the guilt that comes with feeling that actually your head is somewhere else. I've trailed off into that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. I think for me it's really interesting so far to see that a lot of the responses have been that people are interested in making work about their experience, and whereas I was kind of expecting more escapism to come through. But maybe that's something that we'll hear later on in the conversation. So thank you so much. Maybe from one Australian to another, this one being in the room, if we can pass that on to you and tell us about your work and the before and after.
Is this on?
Yes, it's on.
Hi. My practice started in photography and then went into interactive media and also printmaking. My work primarily deals with being in the physical world and the digital world and the crossovers between the two. When I was pregnant with my first child, who's now 6, I was doing a PhD at the time. And I also got funding with a group of people for a very large project that was over £3 million. So it meant I wasn't allowed to stop, which was quite difficult. It was very, very difficult. And my son was the classic screamer. He didn't stop screaming for the first 7 months. And we were going spare. And because I'm Australian, all my family are not here. So I did not have the support networks that quite a lot of people I met had, like family and friends and all that. So I couldn't stop, I just had to keep going, basically. And the only way that I could keep going and make work, Claire brings up this thing about how it's all about our experiences. There was no room left in my head for anything else. That's why it's about our experiences. We have no more room left. I'm sure other people will agree with me on this. It's just too full. And so when I made the works that I made for my PhD, it was an art practice-based PhD, it was about my experiences as a new mother dealing with this little bundle of joy who screamed constantly. The first works I made for that, it started from me recording his screaming at night because the doctors didn't believe there was anything wrong with him. They'd, oh, you're just a new mother. Oh, you're just one of those new mothers. And then when they finally heard him, they went, yeah, there is something wrong. It's like, yes. So that's where my work started from when I was making them. And the works were about print-based artworks. I don't have any images of them to show you, unfortunately. Print-based artworks that you scan with a mobile phone to get more content on them. So it was that relationship between the digital and the physical that I was exploring. My PhD was about looking at those relationships and about presence and telepresence and this whole thing that we're doing now, basically, in a sense. After I managed to scrape my way through the PhD, at the end of my PhD, when I was doing my Viva, I was pregnant with my second child. So life just stopped, and I decided that when I had her, I had to stop for a bit, because I'd already been through the roller coaster with my son, and if it was yet another screamer, it would kill us all. As it turned out, she wasn't a screamer, we were lucky. But Nila brought up a very pertinent point. When my son was born, I had to keep travelling because of the nature of the project that I was working on, the pressure to present at conferences, the pressure to network in the old boys network of academia. When my daughter was born, I said, no, I can't do all that again. I now have 2 children. I can't travel as much as I used to, and for a number of reasons. You don't want to be absent for so long, particularly the older ones notice. You can't just say bye-bye and hope they don't see you. So all that has also changed the way that I work, basically. And like Marina said before, when you didn't do work that was necessarily related to your life and could kind of go away to the studio, whereas now my life is embedded. My work, Sleep While the Baby Sleeps, which will be here, is snapshots of our lives, basically. All the things you do while the baby's sleeping, and how sleep while the baby sleeps is a really dumb piece of advice. So that's what I'll leave you, and you can be the next person.
Thank you so much, Simone. And of course, Simone is one of our exhibiting artists, so you'll be able to see her work, even though there's no images tonight. You'll see it in the flesh next week. The digital flesh. So one of our other artists that's exhibiting in the Motherload exhibition is Mali DeCallo, and so perhaps Mali, you could tell us a little bit about your work, please. Mali is in Tel Aviv.
Yes, hi. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Because I'm only able to hear echo, so couldn't really. And I can hear myself talking, so we'll see. Anyhow, I'll try to be brief. I first started taking motherhood into my artwork when I did my master's degree at Stanford University, and it just happened to be that sentences of my 3 years old daughter just started to appear into my artwork. It was a complete surprise for me. First of all, to use text in my art was kind of new, and to include my motherhood within my artwork was something that I didn't do before. I didn't used to do. It was started then, and now I'm going to jump to the last 5 years and tell you a little bit about my video installation project. Can you still hear me? Because I cannot hear you. Yes, you do? Okay. Okay. Recently, I just exhibited twice, one in Louisiana in the art museum, in Meadows Art Museum, and another, it actually went down, the exhibition went down a month ago. I exhibited a big video installation at Mano Contemporary, Jersey City, which was mainly a long period, excuse my English, I had worked on it for 4 years. It was basically relaying texts and testimonies of mothers that are disconnected from their kids. In my artwork, I try to look at some unspoken issues in motherhood, or some issues that mothers would not tell the truth about or would not tell anybody. I mean, if I'm talking about issues that are kind of secrets within motherhood, and mothers would not share. So one of the projects is this last project, basically. When I first interviewed something like 20 mothers, divorced mothers that are disconnected from their kids after the kids had been incited by the other parent, the father, most of the time. It's kind of a long process, but at the end, after interviewing and after shrinking those long interviews into 5-minute testimonies or monologues, I work with a collaboration of other women. Shira actually is one of the artists or one of the women that was kind enough to collaborate with me and to carry out one of the monologues. This whole video installation was spoken in 3 languages, English, Hebrew, and Arabic, since I believe it's a kind of international issue and not just an Israeli issue. And my main issue is basically now to work with communities of mothers, but also communities of families that would talk about family issues, basically. That's it. I'm gonna cut it short. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mali. Thank you, and yeah, we're very excited about showing Mali's work as part of the exhibition. It isn't the piece that she spoke about there, it's another one, so unveiling more of her work. Mali mentioned Shira, and you would think I had this planned, I didn't, but Shira's up next, and so we'd like to hear from Shira now about her work, and she's our last but not least panellist that we're going to hear from.
Did you hear me?
Yeah! Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes,
She's
you.
having trouble hearing, I think, too.
Okay, now I hear you. I didn't hear you before. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We'd love to hear about your work.
Well, I can't hear you for some reason. Wait a second.
Might have to write it down on a bit of paper.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Yeah? We'd love to hear about your work, Shira.
So, that's strange because I can't hear you. But you hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my practice, I'm actually a filmmaker. I started out as a filmmaker, and I made a film about 2 women, an Israeli and a Palestinian woman. Because my question was, where are women's voices regarding the conflict situation that we live in? And actually the question was a question I had because women are mothers and women bring life through their bodies, and I was wondering where women's voices were regarding a conflict that takes our loved ones away from us. And this was in 2002, and I opened the newspapers and I looked for women's voices, and I didn't find many. And that made me make the film. Then I became a mother, and becoming a mother and a mother to twins, like Leslie, actually dictated the fact that I couldn't continue working in film anymore, which was, that was a very difficult time for me because I didn't know what would happen, and I didn't have a job, and I didn't have an artistic identity, and I was basically just a mother, the twins, which is, as lots of people know, all-encompassing. What happened is that what evolved was that I started actually making dissected film. Dissected film is, if you think about film, film is pictures and story and text and psychology. So I worked, basically I did exhibitions with photography and text, but for me I was still telling a story. And my projects were about motherhood. And one of the first exhibitions I had was a series of huge photographs that I took out of, that I created out of the center of my body, my stomach, when actually using the material left on my body after giving birth to twins. So what actually now it's kind of, it became fashionable to take photographs of your stretch marks, but way back when I did it, it wasn't about the stretch marks, it was more about using the body to express the unexpressed truths and secrets of the transition into motherhood. And now I'll jump to now. What I do now is that I've evolved again, and I found that I really actually am a storyteller and performer by heart. And because I don't have time, because of being a mother, to do many applications and do another film, so basically I'm doing now visual performance lectures. And my theme is actually how the mother is erased from culture, from economics, from popular media, and how it's not something that's only new, it's something that goes back many, many years. So I gave a visual lecture like that with Motherload in Dallas, at the Dallas Museum of Art, called Hot Potato Called Mama. And I keep on evolving these visual performance lectures. They are usually site-specific, audience-specific, subject-specific, and artist-specific, what I want to talk about. For instance, one of my last ones was about men and violence done by men, but and also towards men, because men are also part of the big story. So that's about it.
Amazing. I would love to go to one of those lectures. I'm sure they're very, very entertaining. Thank you so much, Shira. Okay, so now we've painted the picture, I think, of our panellists and their practice and some of their experience. We've got just another few questions to sort of broaden that conversation a little bit. And I think I'm going to hand over to Natalie to direct some of them, and then we're going to, it's a little bit hard to kind of have this conversation between online and offline, so we're going to continue with the panelist questions and then open it up to the audience. So Natalie.
Yeah, I'm going to direct this question to Rachel. Hopefully she can hear me. Rachel, can you hear me? Rachel, I'm going to have you answer the question of what are some of the main pressures you observe in your life, as well as in the lives of other mothers who may not be artists, but the pressures that you see mothers have in your culture and where you're at?
It's so fascinating hearing everybody speak, because I have heard a lot of women talk recently about fear that when they have a child that their work will become mumsy or sentimental. I just think it's actually quite hilarious when you actually once you've had a child and you realise that you really couldn't have a more intense or vulnerable or edgy experience than motherhood. And clearly the work that you're hearing about today is showing that. When I wrote The Divided Heart, the original version back in 2008, that was the question I got the most, particularly from potential publishers, was why artists, aren't they the same as all other working mothers? Why are they so special? What about fathers? And it was interesting for me because I realised that I had to come up with a really strong argument for why I felt that the voices of artist mothers weren't being heard and weren't necessarily special, but were particular, and that the experience of being a mother trying to continue her artistic practice is quite different to having a sort of normal paid job, because that's part of the normal social contract, where you know you go to work and you get paid, and that's very much accepted by society at large. Whereas I think art it's an expression of the self, and I think women particularly still find it incredibly hard to give themselves permission to pursue that, particularly when compared to the very urgent needs of having children. And I think for mothers, it just becomes incredibly hard to justify doing anything that has no direct cost time benefit. I mean, you can be shutting yourself away for an hour and you might come out with a sentence or even a blank page. You don't know where it will lead, and that's very difficult when you've got piles of washing piling up in the laundry. So I think it's been interesting to see that those pressures still really exist for women. The great flip side of that is for individual women, I think it becomes almost an existential question where you've actually got to ask what it means to you and what it's worth, and you've actually got to stake a claim for the worth of art, that it's valuable. And I think it's so important, particularly to me, that mothers are a voice in the art world, or we would have a very impoverished art world. So I think, you know, I could go through the kind of particular pressures, the practical pressures, and I think even more so it's the psychological and internal barriers that women often have to overcome. But I'm sure some of the artists will talk more about that. So I'll start there. Thanks.
Thank you. Leslie's going to ask the next question.
It's been interesting getting to know both Shira and Molly. We've had a chance to do very lengthy and wonderful Skype conversations with them. Both are based in Israel, and so the next question is to you. How do you feel your specific community perceives the ideas of mothers as artists, and any specific experiences that you have with that? So maybe we'll start with Shira on that question. Shira, did you hear the question?
For 6 years, you're considered someone who always draws on the walls of the kindergarten or something for free, obviously. And then when then the next stage, I felt that I was considered a neglecting mother because I didn't really care about making cakes for the teacher's day. So, and I didn't care what smell the clothing that my children were wearing. So then I'm kind of the neglecting mother. And then now it's more that my creativity and energy is kind of hijacked by the educational system that thinks that the children should behave in a certain way. So it changes over the years.
Shira, I don't know if you heard everyone kind of laughing in agreement with you on that. I don't think you heard that from the audience, but we really were. Molly, I was going to turn that over to you as well in any response that you have, just to the community perception, especially in Israel, of your role as mother and artist.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me? Okay, sure. Well, it's a matter of generation. If you were a mother at the 80s and wanted to be an artist, that was something that's almost inconceivable. When people really expected you to give up motherhood, or even not traditionally at this generation of the 80s, women that wanted to be an artist as a professional artist, they would give up motherhood. Now it's getting better, but still, if you are an artist and a mother, you better deal with like high subjects or like cultural subjects. But if so, you better not deal with your own motherhood. But if you were a man, then it was very heroic. It was considered very heroic to deal with your fatherhood. That's something that nobody had expected you to do. So it was very heroic to deal within your art with your role as a father. So everybody will applaud you, basically. But if you wanted, or if you still want to deal with your own motherhood, or if you are dealing with motherhood generally, that's something that the Israeli chauvinistic culture cannot still perceive as a good cause, basically. It still is, unfortunately, but now I can say that younger artists are dealing forcefully with the fact that they are mothers as well. They would not try to hide it anymore. So it's getting better.
Yeah, neither they should, so good for them. It's interesting to hear that perspective from that culture. I'm going to bring the conversation back into this room and this culture and Dundee's culture, and ask Nilla about, so obviously Nilla, you've been involved in the artistic community through your practice, through your teaching at Duncan Johnson, and I just wondered what you felt Dundee's community was like in terms of being a supportive place or otherwise.
So far, so good. I think Dundee has always been a really good place to exist as an artist. The community, there's, I think, a very supportive community. There are many artists that are also mothers, and many of them are here tonight. But in my experience, I think it's just really trying to find the time to stay engaged with that community, and that's always been the challenge, wherever you are, whether it be Dundee or anywhere in the world. It's trying to make that time to do your work and engage with what is happening. But I think there's a very amazing network of artists and mothers that exist here.
That's nice to hear. And do you always feel kind of welcomed back in when you've maybe had a time away, or does it get a bit cliquey?
No, I think obviously some people don't know who you are, but that's okay. And that's the thing with an artist, people might never know who you are, but if you're not present in your work. So I'm okay with that. I think it's, I just think it's supportive community to exist in as an artist. I don't know what other creative mothers feel like, but.
And I guess the same sort of question for you, Simone, but I guess I'm kind of interested because your work is kind of concerned with online communities or interacting through digital, and what is your experience of more sort of online communities in that sense, social media, things like that? Is it a supportive place? Is it, do you feel more judged than supported? Is it honest? What is it?
I think, is this on? Yeah. I think because I live here, but my family and the people I grew up with are in Australia, I very much feel in two places at once, which is why my work also deals with presence. And when Facebook came about in 2007, I was the first person on there of all my friends, because all of a sudden I tapped back into home and I could just stay just a second, you know, whereas before that it was a conversation, the time difference is just so painful, as Rachel will well agree. So that was a joy. And my friends who are artists back in Australia can see what I'm doing. I can see what they're doing. My friends, when I left Australia, none of us were mothers. Now my friends, even friends who aren't mothers as well, I mean friends who aren't artists as well, have all become mothers. And so what we get is, I might do a call out for people to participate in my work, and all my old friends participate, and that's via Facebook or phone camera images. I did a lot of stuff with my PhD for that, and that was really lovely to be able to have that. So I found that the network's been very supportive. I've found that through social media, also Instagram as well, and to a lesser extent Twitter, because I keep forgetting I have a Twitter account. I'm very visual, so basically every time I do a post it's with a photograph, which is why I find Instagram better than Twitter, because quick pics didn't used to be so good. I find that I haven't lost the contact that I thought I would lose. And I'm due to return to Australia after 16 years of being here. So now I'll have the reverse. My heart will be in two places at once. I've stayed here too long, basically. That's what happens. You sink below the surface of a place and you get to know the people in the community. And I agree with Nila, here is a very supportive community, and that's probably why I've stayed for as long as I have. I didn't expect to when I first came to Dundee. So I think that that relationship, the online physical stuff, you know, although I'm going to be saying goodbye to people here, I don't really feel like I will be, because of this idea of presence. You know, that I'll still be present in this space that we all share digitally, and that doesn't change.